Under the Trump administration, significant shifts in the U.S. education system, particularly in terms of financial aid, had a profound impact on students seeking higher education. Whether it's through adjustments to student loan programs, changes in eligibility for federal grants, or new regulatory frameworks, these modifications affected the way students financed their education. As we assess the landscape in 2025, understanding these key financial aid changes under Trump's tenure is crucial for current and future students. This video explores the top 10 financial aid changes that students experienced during the Trump administration. 1. Cuts to federal Pell Grants. One of the most significant changes was the proposed reduction in funding for the federal Pell Grant program, which offers need-based aid to low-income undergraduate students. During Trump's administration, budget proposals included reducing the size of Pell Grant funding, which would have negatively impacted millions of students who rely on these grants to cover tuition costs. Although not all proposed cuts were enacted, the attempt to reduce funding caused uncertainty and concern among students in need. 2. Changes to income-driven repayment plans. The Trump administration proposed significant reforms to income-driven repayment (IDR) plans, which allow students to pay a portion of their loans based on income. Under his plan, changes included limiting the forgiveness period for loans under these plans and restructuring the eligibility criteria for income-driven repayment programs. These changes would have meant longer repayment periods and higher monthly payments for many borrowers, particularly for those attending expensive schools. 3. Tax reform and the impact on education credits. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, passed in 2017, included provisions that affected education-related tax benefits. The law eliminated the personal exemption, but it expanded the child tax credit and increased the standard deduction. While these changes provided some relief to families, they also reduced the tax incentives that students and their families could leverage for education expenses, which impacted the overall affordability of college for many. 4. Changes to Public Service Loan Forgiveness (PSLF). Under the Trump administration, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness (PSLF) program, which offers loan forgiveness for individuals working in qualifying public service jobs after 10 years of payments, faced scrutiny. The administration proposed tighter regulations around qualifying jobs and required additional documentation to receive forgiveness. These changes led to confusion among students, and many faced difficulties in qualifying for forgiveness, despite being promised it under the program's original guidelines. 5. End of subsidized Stafford loans for graduate students. In a bid to cut government spending, the Trump administration proposed ending subsidized Stafford loans for graduate students, which provided interest-free loans while the student was still in school. This change meant that graduate students could no longer receive the benefit of deferred interest, potentially increasing the overall cost of their education. Graduate students, particularly those pursuing advanced degrees in fields with lower earning potential, felt the financial impact of this policy shift. 6. Reduction in federal work-study funding. Federal work-study funding, which allows students to work part-time while attending school, was reduced under Trump's budget proposals. These reductions in funding limited the number of work-study jobs available to students, making it harder for those relying on this form of financial aid to support their education. Students who relied on work-study programs for both financial and professional experience were particularly affected by these cuts. 7. Changes to the free application for federal student aid (FAFSA) process. The Trump administration made several modifications to the FAFSA process, aiming to simplify the application and reduce the time required to submit it. One notable change was the introduction of the IRS data retrieval tool, which allowed students and families to link their tax information directly from the IRS when applying for federal financial aid. This change reduced the burden of paperwork but also raised concerns about data privacy and the security of sensitive financial information. 8. Changes to the Parent Plus Loan Program. The Parent Plus Loan Program, which allows parents to borrow money to fund their child's education, was affected by regulatory changes during the Trump administration. The Department of Education implemented stricter credit checks for parents applying for PLUS loans. This change had a direct impact on lower and middle-income families, who were more likely to have trouble qualifying for these loans, thereby limiting access to educational funding for many students. 9. Impact of trade wars on student loans and tuition. The trade wars initiated by the Trump administration, particularly with China, had unintended economic consequences that reverberated through higher education. These trade tensions led to increased costs for U.S. institutions, as tuition rates, textbooks, and imported goods became more expensive. While not directly a financial aid policy, the broader economic climate created by trade disputes led to higher tuition costs and increased student debt burdens, affecting students' financial aid needs. 10. Increased reliance on private student loans. As federal aid programs were reduced or made more restrictive, many students turned to private student loans to fill the funding gaps. The Trump administration's policies made federal student loans less favorable, leading to an increase in private student loan borrowing. This shift created a more complex and potentially riskier borrowing landscape for students, as private loans often come with higher interest rates and fewer protections than federal loans. The financial aid changes under the Trump administration had a profound impact on students seeking higher education in the United States. While some policies aimed to simplify the process or reduce government spending, they often resulted in higher costs, more complexity, and increased financial burdens for many students and their families. As we look to the future, it is important for students to stay informed about the evolving landscape of financial aid and explore all available options for securing funding for their education. Understanding these top 10 financial aid changes helps students make better decisions and better navigate the financial challenges of pursuing higher education.